Singing to Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. First John is our epistle for All Saints' Day. It was written by the Apostle John as he served his churches throughout Asia Minor, which is mostly Turkey these days. And we think that these letters were written to his congregations sometime between 85 and 95 AD. So John was an old man when he wrote this. That's why, if you've ever noticed, these letters sound like something you'd receive from your grandpa. Because John, you see, at this point has lived long enough to not just intellectually understand faith, but to have fully incorporated his faith. That's what happens as believers age. If they continue to worship and to study the Word, faith just becomes incorporated. It becomes every bit as much a part of you as the blood that courses through your veins. So John is writing to his people here, his little churches, during some pretty difficult times for Christendom. Because remember that at this time, say 85 and 95 AD, Christianity would not be legal yet for another 200 years. And during the time of 1 John, Domitian was the emperor of Rome. He was not particularly nice to other religions. He was pretty traditional with regard to Roman religion. And so Christianity was not to be tolerated, and the persecution, the physical, horrible persecution of Christians was very common. So at this time, Jesus had ascended into heaven, say 50 or 60 years before, and he said he was coming back. And the people who heard him say he was coming back just naturally sort of assumed he meant in a few days, or maybe a few weeks. But they thought that surely after 50 years had passed, he would have been back by now. So, like all of us, John's people live in this world, still waiting for Jesus to return, and in a world that is hostile towards Christianity. They've been waiting their whole lives, like we have been waiting our whole lives, for Jesus to return. And like everyone else, sometimes they grew impatient. Sometimes they just wondered if this whole thing was just a pipe dream. And in the middle of that, John says to them, "See what kind of love the Father has given to us, that we should be called children of God. And so we are. The reason why the world does not know us is that it did not know Him." See what he does? In the midst of our angst, he recenters us. That's one of the things that grandparents can do for us. They've had enough life experience to know whether whatever we're anxious about is something we probably should be anxious about, or whether we just need to buckle down and calm down, go through whatever it is, because it's something that everyone has to just go through. John reminds us here that, yeah, of course it's difficult for you. Why wouldn't it be? The people who did not recognize Jesus as the Christ do not recognize you either. But don't worry about it. It's just the way it is. Eventually, our Lord has to return. We know that because He makes promises to us, and He keeps every single promise He ever made. He promised to return for us. And He promised that when He returns for us, we'll be changed like Him. And what does that mean? What does that look like? We don't know. There's no answers for that. We know it'll be amazing to have resurrected sinless bodies, to have pure and uncorrupted souls, is unimaginably amazing. But no one knows exactly what to expect. And I guess that's kind of part of the fun, isn't it? I mean, will I be thin and have a full head of hair? Or will you all be fat and bald? We don't know what perfection looks like. None of us have ever seen it before. So this day we celebrate with all of the saints who have gone before us. All of the saints who are waiting just like we're waiting. Only they're with God in heaven. Today we remember and we remind ourselves that in fact, the majority of our family, the vast majority of our family, has no physical body. Most of the people that we know are disembodied souls who live with our Lord in heaven, waiting for the same thing we're waiting for. And what's it like to be them? We don't know. We know it's not bad, because God promises that it'll be good. But there's no way that you and I can really imagine what it's like to be disembodied. We still have a body. Of course, this body is broken. And the older you are, the more aware you are of the physical limitations of the mortal body. When you're young, you just can't imagine what it's like to be old. You can't imagine it because everything's working. But as you grow older, you become more and more aware of the mortality of the body as things begin to fall apart. The back and the knees and the hips and the eyes and the ears and a multitude of internal operations. And suddenly you find that you can remember exactly what your favorite cereal was when you were 5 years old, but you have no earthly idea what your 10-digit phone number is today. There are some of us who greatly look forward to being disembodied, because whatever it is, there won't be any pain, and whatever we have will all work right. Today we look forward to and celebrate that day that Jesus is going to make everything right again. When we will be gathered together with all of our loved ones who are already in heaven. We'll be taken out of this sinful world, Revelation tells us. We will be resurrected with a new and perfect physical, yet immortal body. Immortal. That means it'll never break down. And we don't know exactly what it'll be like, but we know it'll be immortal, and we know it'll be in paradise. And we know that for the very first time, we will live in complete harmony with one another and with our world. And we know that all of our loved ones who have died in faith will be restored to us to be with us. And really, that's enough to know. So until that day, we just keep feeding our faith. We keep hearing the word. We keep consuming the body and blood of Christ. And we know that everything will be okay, because God said it would.